Hi, everyone. This is Recovering Wholeness Together with Lynn and Andrea. And I'm Andrea. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Philadelphia, which is the traditional land of the Lenape people. I'm in recovery from, let's see, alcohol, anxiety, loss, grief, disordered eating, lots of other things too. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I'm a certified professional recovery coach, a She Recovers designated coach, a Reiki Master, Reiki Level 3 Master Practitioner, an artist, a mom, and a wife. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Lynn.
Fabulous list. I love that our lists are growing. They keep growing. Thank you. So I am Lynn. I am let's see, she, her, and I live on the traditional lands of the Bay Miwok people, which is the San Francisco East Bay area in California. I am in recovery from lots of things, including addiction and trauma and grief and health issues, autoimmunity, lack mentality, all of the things, and met Andrea through She Recovers Foundation, where I'm also a designated coach, Reiki Master, practitioner, teacher, through the HolyFire lineage. And I work as a behavior analyst supporting families and individuals that have developmental disabilities, kind of from diagnosis through the life cycle right now is where my heart is. So that's what I've been up to. But I am really, really deeply honored and grateful that Amanda McCordic is joining us today. She is a friend of mine through the Holy Fire lineage, and I'm going to read her bio from my phone so that I get it all right, because there was no way I could memorize all this wonderful stuff. Amanda McCordic is a mother, wife, lawyer, entrepreneur, terminal cancer survivor, and Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master. In December 2019, she was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer, which was deemed terminal just months later. A lifelong type A personality, also with you there. Amanda made the conscious choice to focus not on dying, but on healing in body, mind, and soul. Through what she calls divine timing, Amanda experienced her first Reiki session just 12 hours after discovering her tumor. Reiki quickly became a cornerstone of her healing journey, supporting her through unimaginable challenges, including the heartbreaking loss of her husband, Matt, to suicide in March of 2020. Amanda shared her story openly through her Facebook page, Amanda's Tango with Terminal Cancer, offering candid reflections on grief, resilience, and spiritual awakening. 5 years later, she continues to thrive and lives with deep gratitude for Reiki's role in her life. Today, Amanda is founder of Dragonfly Reiki Marketplace. You can see that beautiful background behind her. Woohoo! An online community connecting Reiki seekers with gifted Reiki masters and empowering practitioners to grow heart-centered businesses. She lives just outside Fredericton, New Brunswick, up in Canada, with her husband Brad, children Ethan and Amelia, 2 dogs, 2 mischievous cats, and she remains vibrant, strong, and endlessly thankful for her second chance at life. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. It is just a real pleasure to be here today. I love the work you guys are doing, and I love how you lay out kind of all the things you're recovering from. Aren't we all, eh?
Yes. Yes. And so I'm super excited to have someone that, has a health recovery story and is willing to come and talk to us about it and how Reiki played into that. So, as I said before, you're welcome to talk about anything that you'd like, but we would love to hear more about that if that's something that you want to share
Of
with
course.
everybody.
Yeah, and for me, so I have this terminal cancer diagnosis, and I've lived up close and personal with addiction. Both my first husband had massive mental health and addiction issues. And actually, my current husband is almost 9 years sober. So AA and sobriety has been a huge part of his journey. So for me, challenge, addiction, health issues, it's all kind of the same thing, right? It's all challenges. challenges that I believe that we have chosen for ourselves to give us experiences, to give us learning opportunities. And yeah, I'm really open with all of it. So, I absolutely do not think that I would be alive without Reiki, which I know sounds very dramatic. Um, but I mean that. In 2020, I was 38, and my very first meeting with my oncologist, because we have a bit of a different system here, I had had a mastectomy before I ever met with my oncologist. But she sat me down and told me it was terminal and that I was going to go fast. My daughter wasn't even 10 at the time. She was almost 9. My home life was a mess. My husband was in active addiction, serious mental health issues. My life was chaos. and stress was a driver of all that. At the time I thought like, oh, how did I get cancer? I didn't smoke, and I didn't have any of the traditional what you would expect kind of. I
Yeah.
had breastfed, all that. But once I learned what cancer was, it was really like, wow, how did I not get cancer sooner? Really. It's amazing my body held out as long as it did, considering how little I actually gave it to work with. Um, but yeah, so first getting my head around, Reiki is what helped me process my own mortality, the fear of leaving my children, especially with my husband who I knew couldn't look after them.
Yeah.
Um, And really, thank goodness for that, because, it was about a year of me kind of living with the terminal diagnosis, just a few days short of a year when Matt committed suicide. And, I had suspected for years that that's how it would end. But nothing could have prepared me, um, for just how terrible it was. I found him with a gunshot wound to the head, alive in our bedroom. And, it was just horrific. Yeah, just horrific. But Reiki was a tool that, allowed me to process it in a way that was so much healthier than anything else that I had ever processed before. It gave me a tool so I didn't have to just cram it down and like wallpaper over it with a smile, right? It made it so I could feel safe in my own space, in my own skin, so I could go through all the waves and layers and steps of grieving, which I'm still going through,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
um,
Yeah.
but like I remember when we were finally allowed back into the house, before the people came in to clean everything up, I wanted to go and sit in the room in our bedroom. And I thought this was not going to be one more thing that I took and pushed down deep inside of me, that I was going to face it. And so I went and I sat in the room alone, and I just took in the whole scene. And I sat on the floor and I did Reiki, and I did a spirit release on the room using my Reiki. And I asked for clarity in that moment, for healing in that moment, for Matt, for myself, for the room, for everything in the room. um, and and it actually became this beautiful moment. And like, I mean, I don't want to be too graphic, but you know, it wasn't a clean room. But once you get past the horror of it, there was actually a lot of beauty in it. So my husband, Matt, had struggled with cocaine addiction for several years. He had largely quit when I got diagnosed terminal because it kind of, you know, snapped him out of it a little bit. And he had told me that he was done with cocaine, and I really didn't believe him because it was, we'd heard it lots. But he actually died with a massive pile of cocaine beside him. And it sounds like a dark joke, but it's only like, I'm only half joking. Like, I never thought he would commit suicide with cocaine beside him. I assumed that he would wait and finish the cocaine. And I thought like, oh my God, yeah, he was telling the truth. And then when I opened my closet, um, to get close, it was first time we'd been let back into our house. It was a couple of days before we were allowed back in, and I had to get something to wear to to the funeral home. He had actually taken the cocaine, or massive amounts of cocaine, and blown it all over my black clothing. And because it had sat there for several days, and because of what's in the cocaine up here, apparently, it bleached all of my black clothes. Every one of them. And so I couldn't wear black. I had no black clothing. They were all ruined. And so I wore white because it was the only thing that that wasn't ruined. And I found the other thing I had said to him when he was at the hospital, and he didn't die right away. He lived for a couple of days. And I was holding his hand and talking to him, and I had said, like, you don't have to hold on anymore. You can let go, and my grampy will be there for you, waiting for you. And my grampy is like my number one. Like, I love that man. And he had passed about 11 years. Well, he had passed about 6 years before Matt. And when I went in, or when I was in that moment, kind of processing it, beside Matt, where Matt shot himself, was my grandfather's obituary. I don't know where he found it. I mean, we definitely had a copy somewhere, but somewhere during these last days, he had found it, and it was beside his bed. And I just had so much comfort from that, that it was, and so I Reiki'd through all of that. And now I can take myself back to that room and it not be traumatic. I sleep every night in the spot where Matt shot himself. Because and that's partly because, like, when I got remarried, I didn't want to just slot somebody else into that spot.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, but Reiki was what, you know, definitely got me through all that. And when you have a chronic illness like mine, in November of 2020 or January of 2021, in November I had the scan. In January I found out that they couldn't see any more cancer in me, which was, a bit of a miracle. But they had warned me that if something went kind of skewed in my life, that it would come back and it would explode through me. And so, you have this massive trauma, and you're dealing with the trauma of it, and you're dealing with your super traumatized kids and the businesses and everything else that's going on. And then in my mind, I kept thinking, like, I have to look after myself or the cancer is going to come back. But you can't let it become something that, you have to be aware of it, but not let it control you. I could not have done that without Reiki. Reiki was the tool when I was feeling overwhelmed, when I was feeling guilty, when I was feeling angry, when I was feeling sadness, when I was feeling all of those things. Reiki was what was there for me. And that was actually, it sounds crazy, but it was a magical summer after he died. Really hard summer. I was angry. I was sad. I was, half out of my mind. But because I was it's like an emotional burnout. I spent all my time alone in the Reiki energy, and I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that safe, energetic place to retreat to.
When I know what you're talking about, and Andrea knows what you're talking about, but our listeners may not. So when you're saying that Reiki got you through, can
Mhm.
you kind of like not volumes or anything, but just kind of summarize what that looked like, what you actually were doing?
Yeah.
Just kind of the step by step of like, when I think of Reiki as a tool, like that's how I think it's a tool. It's one of many
Yeah.
tools that Andrea and I have and that we use to keep our balance, to keep ourselves grounded, to keep our focus, to be able to do all the things that we need to do in life. Thank goodness I have not had to walk your shoes, but I mean, I know that if I did have that kind of trauma, that would also be the first tool that I would take out of the toolbox. So what does that mean for you? Like let's kind of
Yeah.
unpack
The
it a
prag
bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely agree that it's a path, or it's a tool, and it's one of many tools, and it works great with other tools too. But what that actually looked like was I did regular Reiki sessions with the Reiki master that I was working with at the time, who's Pam Allen LeBlanc. She was also my teacher. As you said in my bio, I had started getting a psychic had led me to Reiki. I actually started, I had my first session within 24 hours of finding my first tumor.
Mhm.
So the one-on-one sessions were key. Um, she actually let me record those sessions, and then I would listen to the meditation that we did together over and over and over again. I also spent a lot of time. So for the first, sorry, I'm jumping over here a little, jumping around a little bit, but in May, about a month after I was diagnosed terminal, that's when I actually did my first level 1 and 2 class. So once I had that class, what a difference. So then it really allowed me to take Reiki, this tool, into my own hands. And so I Reiki everything. Um, so going back to what your kind of question is, we would do the one-on-one sessions. I would also listen to recorded Reiki meditations, whether they were ones that Pam had done for me as part of a session, or whether they were ones from YouTube or, whatever platform you want. I would fall asleep with them because a lot of times I was just so exhausted, especially when I was going through like radiation. And I was someone who's used to going a million miles an hour all the time. And so to all of a sudden have no energy to do anything, like I couldn't talk to people, I couldn't watch TV, I felt like I was just existing.
Mhm.
On those days, I would literally drag my butt to the backyard in the shade because I'm not meant for sun. And I would listen to meditations on Reiki meditations on loop, and for 8 or 9 hours a day. I also, once I had my level 1 and 2, I also started meditating. And if you had told me 5 years ago that I would love meditating, I would have told you that you were foolish. I have a squirrel brain, ADHD, as I'm sure everyone can tell already. Um, so meditation was not something that I ever thought I would seek out and really crave, but I do. It's my favorite. I'll never be bored again because I can go inside and meditate at any time. So I would meditate and I would sit in the energy. I would invite the energy in. And I started noticing actually in my backyard when I would do that, my body would start moving in, it's almost like a figure eight. I can't recreate it. It's only when I'm in the energy flow. And I started sitting with my feelings in that energy. I started questioning everything I thought I knew about myself, including what I tied my worth to. Um, yeah, I just started questioning, like I would question my daughter if she was upset. Why do you feel that way? You know, what are you scared of? What's the fear behind that? And before, I had always, as soon as I had like you know, any kind of negative thought in my brain, I would slap it down and say, like, oh, don't complain. Why are you whining? You got it better than 98% of people on the earth. Like, stop your bitching kind of thing, right? And so I stopped that and started like really listening to what was going on inside of me. And, yeah, and doing that while you're in the energy, it brings in a level of comfort and safety that allows you to be more vulnerable with yourself.
Mm.
And I still use it. Now I have the benefit of more Reiki masters in my life because of Dragonfly. So, meeting with them is certainly another way that we have access to it. But I turn to Reiki. Uh, I like to say that I sit beautifully and meditate for 45 minutes a day. I don't. I should. My life would be better if I did. But I turn to Reiki whenever I feel I need it. And so, with grief, you never know when a random tidal wave is going to hit you of grief. And when it happens, I take a moment to observe it. I try not to get washed away with it. I try to sit and observe it, and I call in the Reiki energy. And usually, what I say is something like, show me what I'm supposed to learn right now. Like, what
Yeah.
is the lesson in this? Release. And I have some mantras that I do with Reiki, like keep the wisdom, release the trauma. I I use that one a lot when I'm feeling a lot of emotions around something. It's like, okay, what's the wisdom in this experience? And how do I, and I don't even focus on how do I release the trauma. I just ask Reiki to release the trauma from me. And it does, like magic.
Mm,
Yes.
beautiful. You mentioned the phrase spiritual awakening, and I'm wondering, that means
Yeah.
different things for different people. What does that mean for you?
So I have a complicated relationship with religion. So I am the illegitimate daughter of an Anglican priest. I was raised in a very small community that only had a Baptist church. So I was, and really, and when I was young, there wasn't a lot of us, like most of the families were intact. Most of them went to church. Most of them, there wasn't a lot of, illegitimate children running around where I grew up. And I certainly felt different at church. I knew that I asked too many questions, right? They created a whole separate youth group for me and my friend because we were asking too many questions and tainting the other children. And so, I always felt there was more, but I had so much religious trauma around my father, around the church I was kind of raised in, the community I was raised in. And then I went off to university, focused on making myself something, and I became a lawyer. And I kind of put all of that aside, um, and became very logical, very tight. I leaned into all of my type A personalities. And of course, in the legal field, working to the point of exhaustion is held up as a, as almost a criteria. Um, so I really, I felt there was more, and there was absolutely moments when I prayed, especially on some of the really, really hard nights with Matt. Matt certainly felt at times that he was possessed. So, um, there was I was always kind of aware of it, but really had put a huge block around that. Then I go to the psychic, um, and it launches me into Reiki, which really has, um, I didn't realize I had religious trauma that I needed to heal that was blocking that part of my life and that part of my existence. And so when I was working with Pam, she kind of said, like, do you want to work on some religious trauma? And I thought, like, yeah, I'm the illegitimate daughter of a priest. Of course, there's going to be some. I didn't realize how much of a block little Mandy, little version of me, had put around all of that as an event, as trying to kind of protect myself from more pain. So once that was healed, it's like things started opening up, right? The Reiki level 1 and 2, amazing. Um, but the master's class is when it really went, I remember the first time I did Reiki, uh, after I got my master attunement. I was in my bathroom and and I remember I rocked back on my heels with the energy. And I just couldn't believe how strong I could like feel it. And I could, um, yeah, and so I think once the more you spend in the energy, the more you feel it yourself, the easier it is to kind of open yourself up and believe it. And, and again, that summer after Matt died, the summer of 2021, I spent, I was barely working. Nobody expects anything from you when you have terminal cancer and your husband has committed suicide. So it created this lovely little bubble, as tacky as that sounds, where nobody expected anything of me. And that just gave me time just to work on myself and think about, meditate and think about spiritual things and think about what I believed and what felt right. And I just gave it space and energy that I had never in my adult life. And it has continued to kind of pay dividends because of that.
Mhm.
So I wanted to, I'm glad that you brought up that you were a lawyer because lawyers and behavior analysts like me are very evidence-based, data-driven creatures.
Yep.
And you and I have ended up where our heart and soul is in the spirit world. And it's
Nobody would
like,
have guessed.
and right. And I sometimes, for me personally, find it challenging to reconcile those two things, right? Like, because I'm still working in the field too. Um, and I don't get an opportunity to talk and share so much about this side of me. But I think that, I mean, you have kind of left that, right? You're not still practicing law.
Well,
A little bit.
so I still have a law firm,
Okay.
a very active, busy law firm. I'm not working with clients directly any longer. I have two junior lawyers who are just amazing. And we have created a very female-friendly office. And so we are keeping it going, though I don't anticipate returning kind of to active caseload or anything like that. Um, but yeah, we do a lot of, they do really good work. And so we're going to let them keep going.
You have had a Reiki practitioner on staff
Yeah, she
in your
actually
law
has
firm.
left. Yeah, so she's actually left now, on great terms. There's no hard feelings there.
Yeah.
But one of the what we did her last day was actually attune all of the staff to the master level. So all of the staff have their level 1 and 2 and their masters, and we have fully incorporated it into the practice. And so, like you look at the group chat, and there's daily requests in that group for Reiki. And in fact, like for instance, if Laura's been in trial all week, our lawyer, Laura, she'll say, heading into trial, the response from everyone is sending Reiki,
Yeah.
or
What a gift. What an
yeah,
amazing, powerful affirmation.
it really is. Or, Anna, our other lawyer, she's a single mom, and she's a spitfire of a little girl. So, she'll say, I lost the battle this morning with Vi. I'll be in late. Sending Reiki. Instead of judgment, instead of, rolling our eyes, it's like sending Reiki. So it's created a really powerful work environment. And I mean, we Reiki everything, the exhibit books, the pleadings, the court dates. Um, and actually, we found it's really effective. A Reiki session just before somebody is either testifying or entering into negotiations, crazy effective. I've had people who I thought would be terrible witnesses in practice. We've gone through the trial prep, and they're saying things, and you're just like, oh my God, you can't coach a witness, right? You can't tell them what to say, but you think like, oh my goodness, please don't say that. And so we do Reiki, and we find that they because the fear is gone, right? People, when they're not full of fear, speak clearer, have have better judgment, have better insight. So if we, rather than us, giving them crap for not being a good witness, it's like, let's deal with their root fear. And we talk a lot about growing through the experience. Divorce is a hard transition, but it's an amazing opportunity to create the life that you want. And so, yes, we're there to provide legal guidance and representation, but we also legitimately care about our clients and want to see them
Mhm.
heal and thrive, and it also makes our jobs easier, right? So yeah, we fully incorporated Reiki into our practice. I can't imagine doing it any other way now. um, I joke with the girls all the time is I want them to be able to practice family law without getting cancer by 36. And so, how do we do that? We give them the tools like Reiki to help their clients and, more importantly, help themselves.
Amazing. I've started doing that before I go into sessions with my clients, and I can already tell the difference. And I'm doing
Yeah.
it on me. I'm not,
Yeah.
we
Well, that's
don't
just
we don't
it.
force Reiki on other people. So it's not that I'm, sending Reiki to everybody else. It's just on me. I'm setting myself right before I go through the door.
Yeah.
But I can tell the difference for
Well,
sure.
and so we're a group of lawyers. So, of course, we found you're absolutely right. Consent is the basis of Reiki. And it's actually one of the things that I love most about Reiki because I was, raised in the church where you couldn't question and consent really wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Um, so, consent is huge for me.
Well,
Having said that, we are lawyers and lawyers love workarounds. And so we send Reiki to situations, we send
yep.
Reiki to the court staff, any of the souls that want to accept it. If they don't want it, they're going to say no. But we would rather send more Reiki than less. Um, And yeah, there's no question. If this wasn't real, I would have stopped years ago. I can feel the difference. I also notice on days, some days I'll sit back and think like, man, the day is just kicking my butt. And it's like, well, when was the last time you did Reiki? Like, it's like, okay, that's what I need to do. Or like my husband, Brad, is an elevator mechanic. He's a rough and tough guy. He's a man's man. He's 6'5", just as about as manly as they come. And I've seen what it does for him. I've seen the benefit of really for people who you wouldn't think who would be open to it. If you're open to it, it will help. And I think about my husband, super skeptical, which is the other thing I love about Reiki. You can be as skeptical as you want. It still works as long as you're open to it. And I always tell people like the truth can take questioning. And so like I invite people to question. I invite people to try it even if they're skeptical, even if they think it's just the placebo effect. Who cares? If it works, you know, placebo. And I think of it a lot, you're going back to your earlier statement about, like we are based in, fact and logic and this is a spiritual thing. I think of it as like fax machines. I know that a fax machine works. I do not know how it works. Could not explain it, couldn't build one. And the techno or the laws that make a fax machine work have always existed. We just didn't know them. We didn't know how to access them. And so that's what I think about this Reiki. I think my grandchildren will say, of course it works, and here's how it works. Um, we just we just don't know yet. I know it works. I know when I feel the energy, I can, and I know the more that I work with the energy, the stronger it becomes. If I think about the energy, what the energy felt like in my body 4 years ago versus now, um, it's exponential growth.
That's beautiful. I love the way you're uplifting other women, moms, and families with the work that you do and with Reiki.
My goal is to leave every place, person, thing better than when I found it. Like that is my life mission. And I wanted to create the law firm that I needed when I was raising my kids, which I didn't have. But um, I yeah, it's time for the law to be. The law is a really hard profession on everybody, especially women. And it's so important to have women in those roles that, if I see something I can help there, I want to.
Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for what you're creating. And I want to make sure that we leave time for you to talk about Dragonfly Reiki Marketplace, because that's really the big thing that you're also creating besides a fabulous legal firm. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so in the summer of 2020 when I was kind of, you know, isolating myself in my backyard in the energy, I continued to have these moments of profound clarity where in gratitude, I would just be like, I'd feel gratitude wash over me for Reiki. And I think about, it was very clear to me that I didn't know how I would get through it if I hadn't had Reiki. It would have been so difficult. And I really think it would have been too hard and I would have just given up and died. Because when you have like I have a get out of jail free card. Like if this life becomes too much, I literally can just give up and die and nobody's going to hold it against me because I have a terminal illness. And so I would have these moments of clarity of like what a gift Reiki has been for me. And then I thought about how amazing it was that, you know, that I was able to access it right at the beginning of my journey and how the universe had really set me up. But then I also thought about all the nights especially when Matt was alive and right after he died, where I was spiraling and it was dark and it was heavy and it was destructive. And there were nights, certainly I didn't know if I would survive or if I even wanted to survive. Um, I wouldn't say that I was suicidal because I felt this profound responsibility for the people I love, and I could never have left my children. But there were certainly lots of moments where I would have been totally okay with ceasing to exist. with having never been born. And I remember that I used to have this image of I remember thinking I just want to walk into my closet, close the door, and never come out. And I don't know why my closet, but like I had this image. I just didn't. And I had regular sessions with my Reiki master. I was lucky I could afford them once a week. But when I was spiraling, I couldn't just reach out to her because she had a full practice. She was booking about 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And so I was just, had this deep gratitude for Reiki, but also knew that I needed it more. And that there was many nights that I spent spiraling that would have been much better used if I could have quickly accessed Reiki. And then at the same time, I started doing classes and workshops and all that stuff. And I continued to meet all these amazing, Reiki masters, mostly women. And they weren't offering services for a variety of reasons. A lot of them was the logistics. Most of them had full-time jobs. They couldn't just quit their job and chase this dream. A lot of Reiki masters hate asking for money. They're not comfortable with charging for something that feels good to give. So I knew all the impediments to Reiki masters kind of going out and providing services that I knew people desperately needed. And so as this idea started to take root, and the energy was very clear that this was my purpose. This is not why I've been saved, but this is a big part of why I'm here. And at first I thought it was just to practice Reiki, right? I wasn't going to be a lawyer anymore. I was going to open a Reiki. I was just going to do Reiki. And the universe was like, no, that's not it. Your job is to remove hurdles for other Reiki masters, and your job is to spread the light, love, and healing of Reiki. And so this idea of Dragonfly started taking root. And every time I would do my cards, like my tarot cards, the extra message was always like, don't forget about your purpose. Like, do this thing. Whenever I would go, I went to see Michelle Russell, who's just an amazing medium. She speaks a mile a minute, faster than me even. And when I sat down, the first thing she said is, "Oh, I see like thousands of dragonflies swirling around you. Does that mean anything?" I was like, a little bit.
Mhm.
So I started thinking about, how I could remove the barriers. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have that gene where it's like, how hard could it be? Pretty hard, it turns out. Um, but because I'm such an optimist, yeah, I just kind of pushed ahead. And I'm not techie at all. It's totally outside my wheelhouse. And I have had many arguments with the universe. And really, they only ended recently where I said, like, why would you pick me? Like, pick somebody else, anybody else. Like, I am not techie. I don't enjoy tech. I live in backwoods, New Brunswick, Canada. I live in the backwoods of Maine. Think about that for a minute, right? Um, but the universe is clear that this was mine and what I signed up for. And once it's only been the last couple of weeks, if I'm honest, that I've stopped fighting with the universe about why it chose me. Um, but yeah, so Dragonfly Reiki has taken so much longer than I ever thought. um, but the energy always told me that it would be ready when I was ready. And I'm really realizing that this whole project is tied to my healing as well. So I am a chronic overgiver. I am a people pleaser trying to be in recovery for it, but it's still a battle. Um, and Dragonfly has helped me work through all of that. So, and what it is has evolved, and that's one of my favorite parts. So at first I wanted just to create a place for Reiki masters to easily offer their services for however many hours that fit into their lives. So whether you want to do it part-time, full-time, 2 sessions a month, whatever. The idea that the world needed whatever Reiki that you were prepared to offer. The idea was to let people pick their prices, their services. I try to say yes whenever possible. I try not to limit. That's not my job. Um, and so that's what the first kind of version of it was in my brain is, okay, like let's make it so that Reiki masters can easily dip their toe into creating a practice. Let's make it so they don't need a website. They don't need, a bunch of carrying costs. They don't need startup costs. They can literally, this is a side hustle business that you can fit into whatever you have, whatever time and space you have. And I had this dream because I was raised by a single mom that it was a powerful tool to lift single moms and children out of poverty, because the hourly rates that you can charge are good. You can do it when your kids are sleeping. And because of the time zones, you can offer services when your kids are in school. You can offer services when your kids are asleep. You can offer services on the, if you want to just offer services on the weekend that your kids are with their dad, fine. Great. The world needs whatever Reiki you're prepared to offer. And so I really saw it as a tool to lift moms out of poverty, which is a huge, huge part in my heart. So that was the first version, but it has grown since then. It has grown to be what I think the world needs, which is a vibrant online Reiki community. We need community. Modern society has broken down community. And so it is growing and morphing into this beautiful thing where Reiki Masters can offer their services and their healing, but also where Reiki Masters can be themselves supported and healed. And, our healing journey doesn't end when we become a Reiki Master. And so, we're starting support groups and Reiki shares and, you know, a Reiki meditation library, which is one of the things I'm most excited about. We want to make Reiki. We want Reiki wherever it's sought. We want to remove all the burden, all the restrictions to get to Reiki, whether it's geographic, whether it's schedule, whether it's price. So as a part of that, we have a membership program that's unrolling in the next little bit to make Reiki more financially accessible to people. I know that it's tough financial times everywhere right now. People still need Reiki. And so we're trying to think outside the box onto how to, allow the Reiki masters to shine and heal and provide that healing while also being realistic about what people financially can afford. So it's a community and it's growing. And yeah, I'm crazy excited to see how it all comes out.
And you're going to have different price point levels that have different tiers, right? Like for this price point, you get these services, and this price point gets these services. One of the things that I was excited about is that you're going to offer different support groups, so that it's not just necessarily one-to-one Reiki sessions, distance or in person, because both of those are still, that's offered too, but that you're going to have, different people leading different support groups. So Andrea and I have talked about, that we could do a Reiki and recovery support group for Dragonfly or with Dragonfly. And, being able to broaden who we can support and serve through your platform. So that's something that's going to be, a future partnership that we'll do. And kind of like that increases our outreach too. So thank you for making that available to us. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with Dragonfly. I find so much with Dragonfly, they're win-win situations, right? And which is when you're in alignment with the universe, right? That's what happens. They're win-wins versus when, like one of the battles I've had is, I'm a type A and I'm always in a rush. And so I'm annoyed that this hasn't all been figured out and isn't, we're 2 years further down the road. But when I stop struggling against these perceived timelines in my head and just say, okay, universe, you know what the right timing is. You know when all this is supposed to happen. And I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride and go with the flow and do what I feel called to do in any given day. It does create these win-wins. I'm super excited about the support groups because I think each of us have walked the path that we've walked in part to help the people who are 4 or 5 steps behind us. And so, and I also know from experience that it's really hard. Like when I get diagnosed terminal, I had tons of people in my life who absolutely adored and loved me and would have sat for hours talking to me about it. None of them understood what it was like. And I found myself spending as much time trying to explain myself versus when I finally talked to somebody who had gone through it, they knew. They knew what all those, and so it's just it's just so much easier to relate when somebody has gone through it, right? So I do not know what it's like to have an alcohol addiction. I know what it's like to live with someone who you love who has an alcohol addiction, but I haven't walked that path. I am not the best person to lead somebody through that. So I think that's part of the strength of the Dragonfly Reiki Marketplace in and of itself, because you can literally search by topics. So for instance, we have one of our practitioners, she's lost children. She knows that grief, and she knows how to live with that grief. I don't. I can have all the empathy, and I can give Reiki to someone who's lost a child, and it will help. It will absolutely help. But it's not the same as somebody who has been there. And so the support groups came, I don't even know how most things come to me first thing in the morning, but it was just like, really what we need is we need community. We need an opportunity to come together, and people who are walking similar paths, because there is knowledge and wisdom in those groups and those gatherings, and just the feeling. I think so many of us. I saw a quote the other day. It was like, if we all sat in a circle and told our deepest, darkest secrets, we would laugh for the lack of originality, right? Like, we all think that we're these, I used to think all the time I wasn't worthy because if people really knew who I was inside, right?
Right.
No, no, I'm human. We're all human.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so the support groups, we have some really interesting ones. We have one very specialized in diabetes, how to, Reiki and diabetes. Wonderful. We have some around parenting, moms, sobriety. We have another one for to support people who are caretakers for people with chronic illnesses. So basically, we're kind of putting the call out for if a Reiki master feels called, to lead others in something that they've gone through, we're going to create the platform for that. And so we're happy. We're still accepting practitioners. We'll always be accepting practitioners. When a practitioner joins, it's free. It's free to be hosted on our site. If a session is booked through us, we like to be really transparent. So if a Reiki session is booked through us, we collect the payment at the time. We keep 20%. We send 80% onto the practitioner for the one-on-one sessions, and for any classes or things like that. There's no long-term commitment. You join today, something happens in your life and you're no longer available, then you take yourself down. For the support groups, they're both in the memberships, but also people can book them kind of one-off. Practitioners get $10 for each person that attends each session for those. Again, we're trying to leverage, Reiki Masters they're human, they have bills, they need to be paid. But we also know that financially it's a hard time. So we're making it financially affordable for people to buy in. And then all the money that we make from that gets reinvested into the Dragonfly community to help, better, we have a long laundry list of things we want to improve in the site for marketing. So it really is this win-win where we create a way for more people, the public, to find specialized help that's affordable, while also giving the Reiki practitioners a platform to share their story and their energy and their healing, while building resources for this online community that can then work to, do research on research is an area that, I know me and Lynn have had conversations about it. Once it's a profitable community, we're not there yet, but once it is, we'd love to turn some of that money to research so that we can tie back to, this is what I feel, give me some paperwork or give me some good data to show that that's in fact correct. So yeah, we're really excited by it. And I don't know where it's going to go. And I think I do want to say that I think the universe is telling me the universe wants me to say that the reason I was chosen is because it's so outside of my wheelhouse. I have very little ego about it. I don't know. I do not have all the right answers. I'm continuously stumped. um, and so because I have no ego about it, I don't have any pretenses of knowing everything. And it allows for way more, when I get feedback from a community member, I don't feel triggered by it because I don't know what I'm doing. So of course I don't know. And I think that just allows for a organic richness to what's being developed, because my job isn't to say no or to keep people within guidelines. My job is to say yes. listen to what people feel called to offer, and then figure out the logistics of how to do it.
I love the way Reiki has had such a huge impact on your recovery, and you're offering opportunities for other women, other humans to
Yeah.
experience that as well.
Yeah, my first husband, Matt, used to say all the time, like, it was really like we discovered, well, it's suspected after he committed suicide that he probably had schizophrenia, in addition to an alcohol and cocaine addiction. um, he used to say all the time that I had just as many problems as him and just as many addictions as him. And at the time, I was, what do you mean? I'm the one that has everything together. I'm the one doing everything. I'm the one holding you together. How dare you say that I have issues? Yeah, he was absolutely right. That marriage would not have lasted if I wasn't as deeply unhealed as he was. And so I want to create opportunities for people to get off that kind of trauma trip before they end up with cancer, before they end up committing suicide, before whatever, enter whatever bad ending you want in there. I want to create off ramps for people to healing, and these support groups are just an incredible opportunity for that. So thank you guys for being I super excited. Again, addiction is such a huge part in my heart, and it's not appropriate for me to lead a support group in that. I haven't walked that path. You ladies have. And, I think of all the good that can come from your guys' hardest days, from the wisdom from your hardest days. And that's something that cannot be replicated artificially. I can't pretend. AI can't create that. It's that human connection, that community, that hearing that, like after Matt died, talking to a few different widows, it was really valuable to me. If I could have found a widow support group, I absolutely would have been there. And I do think the beauty of where we're at right now in this, digital virtual age is the net is so wide. Like, I know people in my life that absolutely can benefit from what you guys are offering, and but for the digital age, Zoom, Dragonfly, that opportunity to connect just wouldn't be there. So it's a huge win-win. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. The marketplace is nothing without members like you guys. Just a platform.
Well, thank you for providing it. We're excited to see it open and get going. Do you have a date? Is there a launch date of like when things are officially starting?
So the first support groups will start in June. The
Okay.
plan is right now to also launch the memberships in June as well. I don't know if we'll be quite ready for June to launch the memberships. We'll see. I'm trying not to stress about it. But the support groups will absolutely be going forward starting in June. So for the support groups, you can either buy in a one-time ticket, or you can get it through the membership. So until the memberships are going, they will be accessible through those one-time tickets. And we've actually been encouraged by the developers and the marketing team to not do it all at once, to maybe figure out the speed bumps of the support groups and the events, and then roll into the memberships. So we're so I don't know, I guess the energy will let me know, but in June the support groups will be starting for sure, and the meditation library will follow in a month or so after that, if not at the same time. And I do just want to say I'm so excited for the meditation library. And I've been able to benefit from it already. So I have access, obviously, to everything that's been done. I've been listening to them, falling asleep to them, listening to them in the bath. We have a great group of Reiki Masters who have volunteered to record these meditations for us. And in my own life, it's become this wonderful practice where when I come to something, I think, oh, that should be a meditation. I actually stop and write the meditation and then record it. And then my lovely sister puts it to music and graphics and, puts it in the library, and then I listen to it. So today I had a realization that I manifest having just enough. because I'm far more comfortable in struggle than I am in comfort. And so I took the time to walk through, like, what does that mean? Well, that means I'm more comfortable in chaos because it's closer to what I know. I'm not comfortable in comfort.
Mhm.
So and I don't know how to move out of that, but the energy does. And so I put it to the energy, please release, what holds me there. Release this, when Lynn said she suffers from lack mentality, right? The first house, the house my mom took me home to had no indoor plumbing, right? Like we were poor. Um, and so, and I am also addicted to the struggle, right? That struggle. And, cause every time you figure something out, it's that dopamine hit of, yeah, figured out another thing. And so I wrote a meditation, which I'm going to do tonight, that releases all of that. Another one that kind of came into my life kind of organically was this idea of, sitting and recognizing your role in your own suffering
Mhm.
and creating a safe space that you can feel comfortable enough to do that. So I wrote that meditation. I've been doing that a ton. Um, so it's already having dividends in my life. And I think about, like we're planning stories, Reiki bedtime stories for kids and adults, but for
So,
kids. Yeah, and I think, I had kids and I have kids. And yeah, I wish every night that I had put my kids to bed with a long story and a hug and a kiss and everything that we dream. But there was lots of nights where that just wasn't going to happen for a variety of reasons.
yeah.
A good backup to say, okay, you're going to listen to this Reiki, you're going to receive some Reiki and hear a story and go to bed, um, listening to that versus a stressed out mom telling you just to hurry up and go to sleep and brush your teeth. And, like I think about all the times ways that I can introduce Reiki to the world that will have a real impact in everyone's day-to-day lives. And I think this Reiki meditation library is the potential there is just massive. We're also looking at animals. So we have a Nancy Welch who her heart is for animals and her Reiki is for animals. So she's going to do a collection of meditations for animals, separation anxiety, loss of pets, loss of owners. And those are going to be specialized Reiki meditations, probably the first of their kind. Um, and yeah, it's really exciting. And on a personal note, I live with a terminal diagnosis. It's been 5 years. I feel fine. But I don't know. I, I mean, none of us do.
Right.
And I have two kids. And for me, these meditations have become a way to leave guidance and love long after I'm here. So if I die tomorrow and my daughter's struggling 10 years from now, she's going
Mhm.
to have her mom's voice
Mhm.
to come and guide her through that. And so I'm also thinking about, okay, if I can't be here for my kids, what meditations do I want to leave for them? I want to leave one to celebrate their wedding. I want to leave one to celebrate their children. I want to leave one so that when they're struggling and thinking they're the world's worst parent, my voice can come in and say, your children chose you. You
Mm.
are amazing. You are enough. All the things that I want to be here to coach them through. If I can't be, I'll leave my meditations. And if in the meantime, a bunch of other people can benefit from them, wonderful. But I think for each of us, it's an easy way for us to leave a legacy of healing and love in a way that doesn't cost us more than the time it takes to write and do the meditation.
I always like to ask a question about how the Reiki precepts show up for you in your life. And it sounds like that's one way you're living the Reiki precepts, is to be able to share those things with your kids and beyond. So how do the precepts show up for you? Maybe that would be something good we could end with.
It's just so fully integrated into my life. You know, and it's for a long time, like when I first started, it's hard for me to answer that because it's just so integrated. And if I think back, it's such a dramatic change from where I was. When I first told my daughter what Reiki was, that I was doing Reiki, she actually said, and she would have been about 8 or 9, 8. It sounds like a good way to separate a fool from their money, is what her reaction was.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah. And she was so skeptical. And I love that she was. But then she started getting hiccups. and the dramatic hiccups, and I could use the energy to remove the hiccups almost immediately. And I think the hiccups came into her life so she had a physical proof that the energy worked. She had always suffered from really, really bad night terrors. So we started doing Reiki at bedtime, and it's not that we would Reiki no nightmares, because I'm training my daughter to ask for what she wants. And so we would call in good dreams. And so we did that. We Reiki food. Our pets. We have two mini wieners and two Maine Coon cats. And mini wieners are known for being like one person dogs. They hate everybody else. Our dogs love everybody. They love the cats. They love everybody. And all the animals, like our female dog, I was worried she was going to get hairballs because she was grooming our cats so much. That's the Reiki energy. Anytime we bring a new pet in, we Reiki. We Reiki the connections, we Reiki the cords. Every time I get to something that hurts, if I'm coming, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, I stop and I call in Reiki. And there's no, like, people get really, really kind of focused on the procedure of it all.
The
I am
right
not
way.
like, yeah, I'm not like that. Intention is everything. The energy we create ceremony and stuff for us. The energy doesn't need that. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have the Staples commercial there. It's like that button, like
Mhm.
it's, yeah. So I think of it like Reiki on. If I need Reiki, I just ask for it. I don't worry about, if I meet someone who's angry, I'll do a spirit release on them. When I'm sitting in the hospital waiting for tests, I use my Reiki to do spirit releases there. Any space when I'm getting gas, I do Reiki the whole time I'm getting gas for whatever. So it's just so fully incorporated into our lives. And not to say that it's perfect, we're still learning. Um, but it shows up in everything. And now I couldn't live any other way. Like I couldn't live any other way. And I mean, and it, in the name of full disclosure, it's come at a cost. Um, I have I have people who think I'm absolutely insane, who, are pretty sure it's the chemo in my brain that's made me go all crazy. I had a lifelong a friend I had since I was 6. We're not friends anymore because she thinks I'm insane. She thinks I'm a
Yeah.
part of a cult, right?
Yeah.
She thinks it's a cult. And I just like, it's not organized enough to be a cult, first of all. But
No two Reiki practitioners are doing the same thing, so that wouldn't work.
it's like the worst cult of all time. We're just, yeah, we're all too many free thinkers.
And
Um, but it's worth it. It's worth,
Yeah.
and I often say, and I absolutely mean it, like, if cancer was the path I needed to walk to find Reiki, then I would walk it a million times again. And if I had the choice to live 50 years in my old life or 5 in my new life with Reiki, I would pick the 5 every time. That's how, like, I couldn't go back to how I lived before because now I know how it's how much easier it's supposed to be. Um,
Yeah.
but Reiki can help, and I mean this, anything. Your finances, your emotional state, your physical state, your house, the energy in your house, all of it. Reiki can help anything. All you have to do is ask and be prepared to accept it, which sometimes sometimes we ask for things that we're not actually prepared to accept. But Reiki will help you with that too, right? So yeah, it's such a beautiful thing, and I love how accessible. Like anybody, there's nothing unique and special about me. Anybody can do this. It doesn't matter if you have money. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your reading level is. It doesn't matter. Like, you can do this, and the world, your world and the world in general will be better off if you do. Win-win.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that's a perfect place to end this because you've said so many things. I'm gonna have to go back and watch all of this to absorb, like absorb it all. But I did make some notes with some keywords that I will put in the description for our YouTube. Um, yeah, you're really leading the way, and thank you for being the light, that dicomio. You know, you're the great bright light that's offering so much to the world. And I agree with you. I won't speak for Andrea. I'll let her answer this on her own. I would not go back either. Like it's a lot of people don't understand, or they think, you know, whatever, I'm just meditating. But there is a difference, and it's magical, and it's life changing. And I'm really grateful for it. And it's brought me so many people, both of you. So I wouldn't have either one of you in my life.
Yeah.
Andrea, any last words?
I completely agree. I was in recovery for a while before Reiki came to me, and my recovery has just evolved in such a way that I never would have expected. The people, the communities, um yeah, the energy, everything has changed. So it is such a gift, and you're a gift. Thank you for what you're doing for all of us who need more Reiki in our lives. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Amanda.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We will
Thank you.
see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.